morning to you all and welcome to 2026. It is round 863. Planning regulation meeting, and we'll kick it off at 9:13. Councillor Petition is just on her way in still, so we'll kick things off and then hope she'll be with us shortly. We'll dive straight into things, so we'll just wait for Councillor Petition before we worry about an apology if we get towards the end of the meeting. I don't have any leave of absence requests. Can I just check? No councillor's got a leave of absence they need to put forward. Confirmation of the minutes, if we can put our minds back to around 862. Is someone happy to move the minutes of that meeting? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Gates. All those in favour? The minutes of the previous meeting are confirmed. I'll just check there was no corrections. Anyone wish to raise those minutes? Item 4, I'm not aware of any conflict declarations to be made today. Anyone wishing to raise anything, either formally or informally? Very good. That kicks us into the items proper. So we have 4 items on the schedule, 3 currently starred. Can I seek anyone wishing to unstar or star anything? Councillor Martin.
6.1, Chair. Thank you.
6.1 is unstarred. I don't believe there's anything else. So if there's a mover for the starred items, which is 5.1 and 6.3, Councillor Doran, seconder. Councillor Fowler, all those in favour. The starred items are carried. We'll get into substantive items at 6.1. Welcome officers into the room and welcome them to the new year. Councillor Martin will take the presentation on this one. Very good.
Through the Chair, good morning councillors. Today I'll be presenting to you a combined material change of use and reconfiguring a lot to establish multiple dwellings, short-term accommodation, food and drink outlet, office, shop, bar, as well as a volumetric subdivision. This application is subject to impact assessment. The subject site is an amalgamation of 4 sites which benefits from frontage to the Gold Coast Highway as well as 6th Avenue. The site is located centrally within the Palm Beach Centre Zone. The site is in close proximity to public transport as well as community facilities and employment opportunities. Officers note that the subject site has a recent development approval. The development permit was issued in September 2025 and it was a code accessible permit. This established multiple dwellings, short-term accommodation, food and drink outlet, office, shop, bar, as well as a volumetric subdivision. This slide here shows some perspectives from the Gold Coast Highway with vantage points from both the north and the south. The perspectives show the ground floor commercial component, which has been incorporated into the podium design. The perspectives show 3 key elements of the built form, which include the 3-storey podium, which drops down to a single storey towards the west, as well as the lower tower form and the upper recessed tower form. The ground floor plan here shows the 3 commercial tenancies. Each tenancy will benefit from the previously mentioned non-residential land uses to allow for maximum flexibility. We have a consolidation of the services along 6th Avenue as well as separate pedestrian and vehicular entrances along 6th Avenue as well. The landscaping has also been incorporated along both frontages, which can be seen above. The proposed development is subject to the uplift provisions within the city plan as it exceeds the code accessible height of 39 metres. The image above shows the extent of the building above the code accessible height. The proposed development has a total height of 18 storeys, which is 60.4 metres above the natural ground line. Officers have undertaken an assessment against specific outcome 3.4.4.15 within the report. officers have concluded within this report that the proposal meets all the relevant provisions within the strategic framework. Key elements of this proposal include the clear delineation between the levels, which is enhanced through articulation and modulation. It also includes the landscaping that's throughout the design, curved glass, and also varied wall textures. The surrounding area within the centre zone and the medium density residential zone has seen some significant change recently. Focusing on the Palm Beach Centre Zone, there are 4 sites above which officers consider to be of key importance. The 4 sites all consist of high-rise developments which are either existing or approved. The building on the top left of the screen is a code-accessible building which currently exists, and that's 39 metres in height. The 3 remaining sites range between 50.85 metres and 60 metres. It's also noted as well that the building on the bottom left of the screen is currently under construction. Unlike the other zones within the centre zone, the centre does not have an expressed height limit within the strategic framework. This highlights an opportunity for more intense development. This is also supported within the strategic framework by the strategic outcome 3.45, which states mixed-use centres are compact, pedestrian-orientated and vibrant areas with major concentrations of business, employment, community and residential uses to support the vision of a world-class city. They support the greatest intensity and range of activity. When looking at the 2 photo montages above, the development is of a height that achieves the desired function of the centre zone, whilst being comparable to the other 4 previously mentioned approvals. It's noted that the image on the right-hand side of the screen shows the existing code-accessible 39-metre building, and the comparison drawn between this proposal, which sits at 60.4 metres. As councillors are aware from recent committees, the medium density residential zone has seen an influx in approvals at both the code and impact height, and this transition can now be seen in the centre zone as well. The application received a total of 17 submissions. 15 were properly made and 2 were not properly made. However, it is noted that there were only 9 submitters in total for the application. The total number of submissions is a stark comparison against 2 other approvals in the centre zone for Palm Beach, which both received over 1,000 each. Submissions raised concerns with setbacks, wind tunnelling, short-term accommodation, non-compliance with strategic framework and an overdevelopment of the site. Officers have noted all the submissions within the report. However, it was not considered that the proposal needed to be changed in any significant way due to the proposal meeting the intent of the centre zone and also the strategic framework. Thank you.
Alicia, could I check, is this your first time presenting to committee?
Through the chair, it's not.
It's not? I was just going to say that's really well done. You haven't been in for a little while to present committee. Then
It's been a couple of years since I've been up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, forgive me for forgetting, but
No, that's okay.
There's our presentation. Councillors, questions for officers? Councillor Gates.
Sorry, I just have one question about the palms on the rooftop. I was just looking for the landscape condition. I've not seen anything that high on the top of a building before. Is that part of the conditions of approval?
Through the chair, we don't often see palms on the rooftop, but they do exist on multiple buildings. They'll find a way to get them up there. The applicant proposed them. We're happy with their landscaping proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. My question is around, obviously this is following a code DA on this site, but I understand officers are currently in assessment for another DA on this very site, which is actually then a code DA. And I have let officers know because that is in current assessment. So I'm just keen to understand, well, one, can you show us perhaps what the current look of the new DA that's in assessment is? But also, I understand we've got to assess applications as they come to us. However, we typically see code and an impact. We don't often see a code after an impact. So with the developer, thanks for putting it on screen there, seeking this application and an assessment, I'm just wondering, is it a waste of everyone's time to be assessing this DA when that application is currently under assessment and is where the developer has applied for?
So I'm not sure if we can refer to it as a waste of time since the developer's paid a fee for it to be assessed by law, but Brownie, Lara, do you want to answer the legalities around our requirements to assess what's put forward to us?
Sure. Through the chair, you're correct, Councillor Martin. The developer acquired an adjoining site fairly late in the assessment process. They'd already lodged their code application and I think this subject impact application. So we are compelled to assess and decide any properly made development application. An applicant can have multiple development approvals over one site. So I acknowledge it's a bit odd that they've gone through a code, now an impact, and now they've got another development application on a larger development footprint. But if it's a properly made application, we are required to assess it on its merits.
So can we request, if they've lodged another application, can we not request that they rescind the current application so that we can get on with assessing the new application?
Through the chair, they can have 10 development approvals over a site, and then they have the opportunity to decide which development approval they want to enact. There's no law against having multiple development approvals over a site.
Would you just mind, sorry, shouldn't create Brownie, Adam, just more specifically to Councillor Martin's question. So we could have requested they withdraw the application, but if they said, no, we wish for you to finish the assessment and give us a decision, we have no choice.
Through the chair, that's correct. And in my discussions with the developer, they've asked us to decide this application as submitted.
Follow-up questions of this line, Councillor Gates?
Yeah, I haven't seen this before. So could they, if this is recommended today for approval at the additional height, clearly the new application is at the lower height. Could they enact this application and have the taller building and then just put the code? Would they have to withdraw the latest code application? Or could they get both and do half and half?
Through the chair, once you enact a development approval of some sort, it often prevents you from undertaking another development approval over the same site. The strategy that this developer seems to have liked is doing a code development approval and then doing a subsequent impact accessible development application. So I suspect we may get a further impact accessible development application with the two towers as you're seeing before you, but that may come at a later stage. So to answer your question, Councillor Gates, they could enact the approval that we're considering today.
Yeah.
But if there were conditions on that approval that conflicted with some other subsequent code approval, like the one you're looking at on the screen there, they would have to choose which one they enacted.
I think the important part is they can't pick and choose. They can't say we want the height of that approval, but we want the building to look like that approval.
Correct.
If you go whatever one you enact, you'll have to go with the height, the setbacks, everything from that approval.
That's right.
Yeah.
And have they amalgamated it into one site, or is there a separate site that they could make a new application on with this one approved?
Alicia might be able to confirm, but I think through the chair, this is the one we're looking at now is all over one site. We've only just received that application a couple of weeks ago. If we go through the assessment process, there will be an amalgamation condition imposed.
Oh, okay.
That's correct. It's broken into 2 stages, but it will be amalgamated as one for this one.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin, back to you.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for that. Through the application stage, I was reading the information requests from officers, and where officers raised setbacks as being one of the issues, where it talked about at 56 metres, the setbacks sat as close as 1.9 metres. So the officers sought to improve that, which I thought was great. But the developer the applicant has essentially rejected that request. So I'm just seeking to understand, officers sought that in the IR stage, but it wasn't accepted. Could you provide any more context around how it's appropriate not to do it?
Through the chair, the setback was at 1.7 from the outermost projection, and we requested it to be increased to 2 metres. The applicant provided additional diagrams and information, and from that additional information, officers were comfortable that the 1.7 metre achieved an acceptable outcome for the centre zone. And we'll also note as well that that is to the outermost projection, so a significant portion is set back further where the balconies go, and then also the bedrooms as well. So we were comfortable that the setback achieved a balanced outcome.
Okay. Just on that, so this one borders the Gold Coast Highway and obviously has the TMR resumption. Originally that was a light rail, but now that TMR have said, the Minister said they're going to preserve that corridor. So just seeking to understand if TMR actually enact that corridor, what will go and what will the setbacks look like for the Gold Coast Highway?
Through the chair, the area on the screen that's hatched in red is the future resumption. So the landscaping and the awnings have all been marked as sacrificial. So in future, should TMR come along and take that area, the developer is prepared to remove it all. However, we can't comment on what the ultimate design will look like along that road, whether it'll still maintain a footpath or a bike lane or parking. But yeah, all of that stuff there is sacrificial and has been conditioned in the TMR approval through the SARA approval to be as such.
Yeah. So just on that, so then the not only the sort of the footpath dining would go, but I think, is it correct that the actual awnings in the buildings would go potentially as well? They're removable as well.
Through the chair, that's correct.
So would it not be appropriate that be set back so that the awnings stay even after a resumption? Like essentially moving the setback so that we've got that facade that has been put up would stay even after a resumption.
Through the chair, the city plan centre zone code talks about activation of the street and doesn't prescribe a setback requirement. We worked hard to try and get those landscaping elements you may be able to see that are within the building or within the outside of the road resumption area to ensure we were getting a bit of greenery at the ground level. But we were comfortable with the outcome proposed. Understand your comments in regard to getting an awning set back further. It's a difficult one where the centre zone talks to having, retail and activated ground levels. We were comfortable with the proposal as put forward.
So thank you. Could I just check? We have no detail of what might happen in that corridor in the future. So there's every chance that the awnings and the landscaping stays because DTMR says we don't need it. So it's a bit of a future question, or we might end up losing half of it, not all of it. It's an unknown, is my understanding.
Through the chair, that would be a fair.
Yeah.
Theoretically, then, if the road resumption is achieved and there's some sort of curb or constructed edge to whatever that physical feature is in the road reserve, what's the distance between that and the front of the building? It looks quite small.
Through the chair, do you mean the outermost projection to the new property boundary?
From the edge of the road resumption, which would be the property boundary to the building itself, yeah.
It's about 700 mil off the top of my head.
Right.
This is consistent with a lot of other centre zone approvals where we do have that activation on the frontage and the commercial tenancies go right up to the property boundary.
And the road resumption itself could theoretically be footpaths or something.
Yeah.
That's correct. We don't know what it would look like. It could be footpath, it could be a bike lane or parking. We're not sure of the ultimate design at this stage.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
So our only insight to that would be DTMR have effectively their version of land development guidelines of the standard of footpath and the standard of bikeway they install on new roads of certain levels. So we're not going to see a road up against the building. There would be a footpath and most likely a cycle lane in alongside of it.
Through the chair, that's most likely correct.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Martin, back to you.
Thanks, Chair. So just on that landscaping there, and I do think it's a really good outcome that those established palms have been inside the potential resumption. I think that's a good outcome. The established trees on the verge, especially Gold Coast Highway, are they suggestions, or are they conditioned to go in? Are they those larger trees on 6th Ave, the 4 around? Are they conditioned in, and are they approved on the Gold Coast Highway?
Through the chair, sorry, do you mean the ones in the property boundary or on the street?
On the verge, on the street.
They are conditioned at the moment in the landscaping condition, consistent with the statement of landscape intent.
Okay. Thank you. And in the renders, it shows all the power lines. I couldn't find it in the conditions, but it shows all the power lines not in the imagery. Mm-hmm. Will they also be undergrounded on the Gold Coast Highway and 6th Avenue?
Through the chair, officers have not recommended the undergrounding of power lines. However, I believe the developer does intend to underground them, but will be through future negotiations with Energex. But we have not included this part of the approval.
Through the chair, if I could add some additional comment there in discussing the Palm Beach Centre Zone with the developer. They've got a couple of other sites. They're undergrounding some power lines on another site and are working with Energex on a second site at the moment. So they have every intention to underground them here. It's proving a little difficult up the road, but they're trying to facilitate that outcome with Energex.
Okay. Just a few more, Chair. On the site, there is a very large Norfolk pine. Can I just seek confirmation? Like, it's obviously close to boundary, but it's within this site. I'm just seeking confirmation that is proposed to go. And I understand, was that already approved in a previous application?
Through the chair, the pine is in as of right clearing as it's located within 1.5 metres of a property boundary. So no approval is required to remove the tree, and it will be going as part of this approval.
Okay. I just had a question about waste. I noticed they have 7 bulk bins serviced twice a week, but was surprised. Can I confirm that is going to be required to be pushed out onto the street and collected? And if so, why is it not that they would collect on site?
Through the chair, that is correct. It is on-street servicing, so someone will come and move the bins a couple times a week. I believe at the moment they don't have the vertical clearance to have on-site servicing. Off the top of my head, I think they need about 6.4 metres vertical clearance for a front loader, and because of the podium design, that impacts them doing it. So for this one, it is on street.
And is that consistent with Centre Zone? Like, is that the desired outcome?
Through the chair, there is a bit of a mix in approaches. There are a couple others in the street which also have on-street waste servicing.
Okay. And really just seeking, we talk about density a bit, and I noticed in the report it actually did say this was RD7. I noticed 2 figures actually, 1 in 25 and 1 in 35. I'm just seeking confirmation that density is 1 in 25, the overlay. Page
27 says 35.
27,
and
page 34.
24 says 25.
Through the chair, I believe an RD7 is 1 per 25 square metres.
Thank you. And so this proposed density is 1 bed per 5.8. Just, again, it's seeking, obviously that is more, quite some more intense or dense than the overlay. Just seeking a comment, is that appropriate for the Centre Zone and other developments in the area? Are we likely to see 1 in, the 5s being desired recommended outcome?
Through the chair, the centre zone has, in the overall outcomes as well as in the strategic framework, an intent for more intense development, talks to large centres of employment and tourist accommodation and residential accommodation. This is also reflected in the strategic framework where there is no height limit for impact accessible applications, which shows an intent for more intense development. So officers are comfortable that this density is appropriate for the site, and the reason it's so low is due to the increased height.
Follow-up question from Councillor Doran.
Thank you. So on that particular point, so this is a subjective decision that, based on the performance outcomes, one at 5.8 is considered okay, but in the city plan, it does have let's call it a starting point of 1 in 35, Adam, or 25. 25. Isn't it possible that the density rate that's been attached to the city plan and the performance outcomes is actually something that shouldn't be, just with respect, ignored? Because it's not missed by a little bit, it's a fifth, right? So isn't that possible that density benchmark is actually a check on overdevelopment?
Through the chair, a lot of tower development approvals on the Gold Coast exceed the density provisions. Probably all of the ones that have been done in Palm Beach would be over and above the density, well and truly over and above that density designation. We try and manage built form in terms of setbacks, site cover and height. There are some overall outcomes for density. So when we do an assessment against those, it includes a capacity assessment of networks, ticks that box, road transport networks as well. So we go through and do an assessment against those outcomes. If it ticks those boxes, we're happy to support the density as long as the built form is an appropriate built form outcome.
So I appreciate that, Adam, Chair. And I just want to touch on this a bit because it seems to be, it's quite a big change from where I wasn't here in 2014 to 16 when this current city plan was discussed and adopted, but it's been included as a provision that is the density that we're aiming for here. And it seems to me that it's been parked as a assessment benchmark in preference to other benchmarks that are assessed against. And it's only raising a question for me today, Chair, because it's so different from what is in the current city plan. And I guess I'm after not what's happened before, but rather the justification for such a significant gap between 25 and 5, which at the result of which is 309 bedrooms as opposed to 200, which is a built-in, not cap, but it's a built-in check on overdevelopment as that density, and it feels like it's been parked a little bit. Can you give me some context as to why? Thanks, Chair.
Through the chair, you're correct, Councillor, that it provides an acceptable outcome, but then when you go to that performance outcome, it talks about where the density exceeds that shown on the residential density overlay map. I'm on page 75. Housing is provided at a form, scale and intensity that is appropriate for the zone and each particular locality. It is in where the following outcomes are satisfied, and it goes through a bunch of those outcomes. So that's the performance test that we undertake. It doesn't say there you cannot have a substantially higher number than that density designation. It just says if you meet these outcomes, you're considered to satisfy the density requirements of the performance outcome.
One last thing, Chair, if you wouldn't mind. I'm not an expert in this, but we read these enough now to see when things look a little bit out of whack. I look at this, Adam, and I say, you're 100%, you guys know this stuff, and you're assessing it against a different criteria. I have to reach back to when the plan was adopted, and I'm getting to my question, and say, what was the reason why this was inserted? And when you align that with an essentially unlimited height, not unlimited, but there's no cap, then the cap, essentially, the check on the height is density. Do you think that's why that was inserted at the time? I'm asking you to, obviously we're talking hypotheticals here, but like if you don't have a cap on an uplift, the actual cap that's sitting there is actually the density of it.
Can I, before Adam answers that,
Sorry.
can I just tease that a bit? Because in your logic just then, couldn't they have said, "Oh, we'll make the tower twice as tall and go for the 1 per 25 instead"?
I guess my questioning on my questioning on that was going back to, we're drafting a new city plan now, so we're getting into the weeds on this stuff. If you don't put an uplift and it's essentially a height that's able under the performance measures to go higher, Chair, then it could be possible that the inclusion of a density rate at that 1 in 25 was the check on going too high or going too hard. So that was my question. That's my concern.
Brownie was here when the last planning scheme was adopted. Lara wouldn't have been, and Alicia was up the road at that stage. But my understanding from a couple of people that are around that length of time was that it was a trigger that it put it to impact assessment, that particular overlay was there, so it then forced you to provide capacity assessments for water, sewer, stormwater and traffic assessments. Just to Adam's point, like, I can't remember the last time that we saw an approval or even a proposal in the first place where they actually adopted the code overlay. I think it's way out in most places, but Adam, do you have a memory of back from 2016 when this was first adopted that it was to trigger impact assessment and then you therefore had to provide all this additional reporting on capacity of networks?
Through the Chair, that is correct. In the 2003 planning scheme, the density was an impact trigger in addition to height. They sought to remove density as a trigger for impact assessment when the city plan came in. I'm not in city planning, I'm in city development, so I'm not sure of what the work was undertaken to remove that threshold or the impact threshold for density, but it suggests that there was some capacity in the network that they could manage these things through a code accessible application.
Adam, it would have been that the difference between the 03 scheme and the 16 scheme is the 16 scheme had to be performance based, so you couldn't have a black and white density rule. You needed to provide a performance outcome, so you needed a trigger and then you needed something to put through a performance outcome, which is what we have at the moment. So you could adjust the trigger up or down, but I think the important part is having the performance outcomes are where you have to prove there's actual capacity in networks to handle this. What we don't have, and something that, again, since we're in new scheme territory a little bit, is cumulative impact. So say someone puts together a big site like this, there might be capacity in sewer and water networks, but do they take up a big chunk of the capacity in one site, then there's nothing left further down the network somewhere else. So cumulative may be an impact trigger in the new scheme to consider, or something at least for officers to be able to look at. Do you have any follow-up on that, Councillor Doran, on the density trigger? Alicia or Larry, it might be worth, we've had a lot of things go through committee and council in the nearly 2 years this group's been together. I think while this is on the skinnier side of the density provision, it's definitely not. There's been lots that have been in the 5s and 6s and 7s. Maybe if we could pull together a bit of a comparison table of just exactly what has been approved, what the overlay trigger was, and then what the ended up approval was. So I think it's actually not that far out of the realm of several things we've approved previously. Councillor Gates, did you have a follow-up question on density?
Well, yeah, I just wonder why we need it in the scheme, as long as, it's only for capacity, isn't it? That it's a consideration. So does it even need to be in the new scheme?
Adam's going to politely say he's not part of city planning, but Alicia might want to crack.
Through you, Mr Chair, Councillor Gates, it's definitely something we're looking at the moment. We've seen a lot of local governments recently start to remove it out of the schemes. It's not saying that we want to do that, but what we want to look at is, can a site sustain what it is, and then what that built form is. And I think something that we've spoken about a lot with councillors is, what is that built form? What do we want from setbacks? What do we want from height? And then what's in the middle of it? Car parking compliance and everything, as an example, that's what we want to ensure. So we haven't got to that discussion yet with the planning scheme, but it's certainly something that we've spoken about a lot with our team, and something that is on our list to talk to you in future workshops, because it is a discussion, and it's a really important discussion for the city. I think the cumulative impacts that Councillor Hamill just spoke about is something we really need to be aware of as well, for the future sustainability of our infrastructure as well. So not just transport infrastructure, but our stormwater impact, our sewer network as well. So it's a complex question. I think just to touch on it quickly too is, when we were looking at the amendments a few years ago, we were looking at the calibration between height and density over the scheme as well, and that's something that we absolutely have to look at in the new scheme is the height calibrated right with the density, and are we being honest with when we're putting our plan out to say this is what you can get, so for our community they understand that. And I'd comfortably say that I think the calibration across the city plan is out in a number of facts for height and density is not aligning.
So if you wouldn't mind, Councillor Gates, the only other bit I'd add to that, what Leash just said, and I agree with all of that, is that there's been quite a lot of case law in planning court judgments where judges have said density is a bit of a fluff trigger, like, you know, will the toilets flush? Will the toilets flush? Is there water supply? What's the traffic impact assessment? The judges keep going back to what's the impact of the density. So whatever the trigger may be, if it's in or out, I think the important part is that we put applicants through rigorous reporting on traffic impact assessment, stormwater assessment, sewer assessment, water assessment, all of those things, which is what's the actual important part, is the impact part of it. We'll see. Sounds like it'll be an interesting discussion at one of our future workshops for us all to get into. Councillor Fowler, did I see a follow-up on this line of questioning as well?
I think it's just been covered in that narrative, but it was just around that cumulative impacts. And I guess my interest was when we're looking at adjoining development applications and we're looking at the capacity of those sites, but then sometimes those sites don't get developed or they might get underdeveloped. It's just a really complex piece, and I guess I was just curious to see how the assessment team does look at that when we're looking at applications. Are we looking at what's been approved next door and down the street and what exists today? Is that how we're doing it?
From my understanding, our water and waste officers keep a pretty good check on all those development approvals and what capacity or densities they've supported, and they factor those into any capacity assessments.
Councillor Martin, I think we've done the circle back to you.
Yeah, if I could just add to that density conversation, because part of the performance or the impact assessment of that density trigger is, yes, there's the infrastructure and waste, water and sewer and all of that, but I think the big part for me is the test around social and community infrastructure. And if Palm Beach is getting 5 times the density, is it getting 5 times the amount of community and social infrastructure, which is less about the developers putting in? So understand that the waste and sewerage team will monitor that, but I guess I'm just really, as we look at a new city plan and we look at future investment, making sure that if we're getting the density, that we're getting the infrastructure outcomes that are that you can see in the area.
I feel like very good, Councillor Young. Perfect timing. I feel like everyone's had a statement on density, so we might go back to questions. Councillor Martin.
Chair, question about the height, and obviously noting I take the point in that it's not the limited cap around the 50%, but obviously the first significant high-rise in that area was the Collective, which went to appeal. I know it started at 25 stories, but ultimately the courts, it wound back to the 50%, and even though we don't have a 50% enshrined in the city plan, the courts landed on that 50%, I think 58.5 metres. My recollection was that was still pretty important part of that judgment, that given that the rest of the CBD is 1 and 2 story, that 50% was the kind of more, place and sense of identity and reflective of the area. So just seeking officers' view, it's only a few metres higher than 50%, but it will still make it the highest building in the precinct. Thinking about Collective Tower, is over 50% appropriate?
That may be why you can give your opinion on the appropriate part. The insight into the appeal might be difficult for these officers to answer. I don't probably have an officer that can answer that, because Councillor Martin, my recollection of that appeal, and forgive me, it was early in my time as chair, but I think that was an applicant-led option. Like, that wasn't that the judge brought it down, the applicant made that offer. Is my memory, but we might have to get that clarified by someone in the appeals team before full council. But the rest of the question, you're welcome to answer, officers.
Through the chair, officers note that this image on the screen, the second red line is the 50% cap. So the extent of the building above that is central to the floor plate and is limited to building services. So from the perceived ground floor, if you're walking along the street, it's unlikely that you would see the extent of the building above that 50% limit. So officers are comfortable with this height.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you for the questions. Appreciate it. That's it.
Councillors, anyone else have questions for officers? In that case, I'm happy to move the item if there's a seconder. Councillor Young is happy to second. Sorry, Councillor O'Neill, I think I saw your hand at the back of my peripheral. Happy to support this item today. Thank you to councillors and officers for a good bit of candour there that mainly focused on the new planning scheme instead of maybe this application in general. But this is a fairly substantial site in Palm Beach. It's just under 2,000 square metres at around 1,800 square metres. It's a prominent corner site, which, if we're talking new planning scheme again, I think we need to show a little bit more attention to corner sites. That while we should expect good architecture and built form in all buildings, especially corner sites that are so prominent in these areas, should rightly really look top-notch and have excellent architecture, excellent built form. The street edge and the activation at the ground level should be where the greatest concentration is in these areas. I'm very comfortable with what I've seen through the officer assessment and the reporting here today that this applicant has put considerable time and effort into the architecture and built form of the building. I quite like the look of the podium and the street edge and that activation that would come with that, and think it'd be a great addition into Palm Beach. I acknowledge Councillor Martin's questioning around there's an existing code approval on the site. This is an impact assessment, and then we've been alerted by Councillor Martin officers that there's now an application that covers an even bigger portion, which will be very interesting because I think that would probably be the largest site in Palm Beach that's been amalgamated to have a proposal put forward on it. So we look forward to seeing more about that in the future. But we have a requirement to make a decision on the application that is in front of us today, which has been assessed by officers. More than happy to support it and would encourage my colleagues to support it as well. Speaker against the motion? Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. I'll keep it short. I acknowledge, I think architecturally there is a lot to like about it in terms of design and some of the landscaping improvements and the things that officers have been able to achieve. For me, ultimately, I think the city made some reasonable requests around setbacks, especially given future resumptions that would have improved the site. And I think 5 times the density, and the tallest building in the CBD, I think the community will feel impacts, and I think those could have been offset by reasonable changes that officers sought through the information stage. I think obviously we're in the uplift space, so there's the criteria. There are parts that have that excellent standard of appearance, but I think the western facade that, fronts the other code story building on the corner raised some concerns. Neighbours raised concerns around the western facade, and I don't think have quite hit the mark around excellent standard of appearance. I've read that there's some thermal reasons why, and but I think ultimately the upper levels it's more excellent, but at the lower levels, to me, doesn't pass that test. I'm concerned with the waste arrangement around the 7 industrial bins pushed onto the street twice weekly in the centre zone. And for me, look, I think Palm Beach is obviously not known for podiums, but it's expected in a centre zone. But I think the 3-storey podium starts to then not give that human scale. I'd probably be more inclined if it had commercial, but it is residential, so it's only the lower level that have that street activation. So, it's a very prominent site. I think the setbacks are the key one for me. I understand this is not going to be pushed forward because they've got a code approval and we're likely to see an impact. Take the point that we've got to assess. I mean, I personally would have rather see officers seek an extension so that we could assess future applications. But I think the main thing for me is the the confusion for the community. This process is very confusing for the community, and I take there's been less submissions, but there's a fair bit of bamboozling going on, at times, and ultimately those previous applications with thousands of objections didn't lead to the outcome that the community was seeking. So I don't blame that. I understand why these numbers are so much lower. So for those reasons, Chair, I'll be voting against.
Speaker for the motion. Okay, so I'll close quickly. One, to agree with Councillor Martin, I think the confusion from the community around code impact and our code again, and then we see this a lot, applicants getting a code and going for the impact. As has been pointed out many times, it's completely legal, and that's one thing we can't change with our new planning scheme. That's not for us, that is in the Queensland planning legislation. So if any state MPs wish to take that up to remove that from the legislation so that that's not an option anymore, that's definitely on the state MPs. We can't fix that in city plan, but I acknowledge the confusion and think that is very real. Just on Councillor Martin's point to the setbacks, I read the information request as well and read the submissions that came in. I think if we were in the medium density zone, we would definitely be in the realm of saying the setbacks are not appropriate, but it's in the centre zone. And I acknowledge the setbacks that were of concern to officers were the outermost projections, where if you do a quick analysis of how far along the edge of those buildings those outermost projections are, it's fairly limited. You then have a lot of articulation in this building where you very quickly go from the outermost projection and then you're a metre or two deeper in. So I think the articulation in the form of this building makes up for those outermost projections. I actually personally think, and not an architect by any stretch, but the amount of curve in the building and how they've done that, which has resulted in smaller outermost projections, actually looks really good. It's very different architecture than a lot of the other things we're seeing, and I think that's what these prominent corner sites deserve, is not just the same thing that everyone else is doing, like show something a bit different that's going to look a bit interesting. While it may be accurate that they don't do anything with this approval and that the new one that's been put in is what they go forward with, that's a what if at this stage. They might go through that process and decide they actually like this one better. This one might stack up commercially better for them. Who knows? So I think we should just be careful of suggesting this one won't happen, because there's every chance that it might. You never know. But again, I come back to that I think there's been a really thorough assessment of officers. This particular developer is very well known in Palm Beach now. This is be their third or fourth project, and from looking at it, they've got more to come. The quality of the product they deliver is very good quality, and that brings a level of confidence with me in it that they do deliver what they put forward. Again, I believe this application should be supported and would encourage my colleagues here today to support it as well. Debate is closed. We'll take a vote. All those in favour? Division is called. In support, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Young, Councillor Fowler, Councillor Gates, Councillor Patterson, Councillor O'Neill. Against, Councillor Martin and Councillor Doran. The approval goes through. We look forward to full council on that item. Alicia, Brownie, Lara, thank you very much. Thank you. We will move on to item 6.2, where we promise we won't talk about the new planning scheme. Maybe. Not up to me. Is there a desire from committee members for the presentation on this item? I'm looking at the bloke that introduced the GBI that brought it here in the first place. Councillor Doran, are we seeking the presentation on this?
Sure.
It's up to you.
Yes.
This was on the back of your GBI.
Let's hear it.
Thank you. Through the chair, good morning, councillors. My name is Stacey Wallace, Coordinator Compliance Strategy within City Inspectorate, and I'll be presenting item 6.2. The associated report outlines the current approach undertaken by city officers to increase dog registration rates, including proactive initiatives. It also provides an overview of the current and proposed strategies to mitigate the associated risks and to reduce the impacts of dog attacks in the community. As the number of the dogs calling the Gold Coast home rises, so does the risk of dog attacks. In response to safety concerns, the Queensland Government undertook a comprehensive review of the Animal Management Cats and Dog Act 2008, commonly referred to as the MCATA, including creating a task force and seeking public input to strengthen enforcement and accountability. Key reforms adopted include tougher penalties for dog owners failing to show effective control, significantly increased penalties for dog owners whose animals cause serious injury or death, the possibility of imprisonment for dog owners, and a statewide ban on 5 restricted dog breeds. Dog registration is a legal requirement in Queensland and a key part of animal management. Owners must register their dogs within 15 days of acquiring the dog or relocating to an area, and that's applicable for all dogs over 12 weeks of age. Despite being a legal requirement, dog registration compliance remains a persistent challenge across Queensland and nationally. While dog ownership continues to rise, registration rates aren't keeping up at the same pace. Unregistered dogs make it harder for animal management staff to investigate incidents like attacks, roaming, or lost pets, and they complicate identification, ownership, and reunification efforts. Our team works to balance the needs of a growing city and a growing dog population through education, enforcement, and investment in infrastructure that promotes safe and responsible pet ownership. Staff enforce both the MCATA and our local laws, including the increased penalties, such as the current $834 on-the-spot fine for dogs not under effective control. Councillors, you'll see in Table 1 of the report, as shown in the presentation here, this provides the data from the past 5 years for the number of registered dogs and the number of reported dog attacks within the City of Gold Coast. The number of reported dog attacks has declined in recent years, despite the increase in the number of dogs in the city. This indicates the ongoing education, community engagement, and the efforts of our city's animal management staff have been critical in improving community safety. Yep, that's fine, thank you.
Councillor Tozer.
So, given that's only a month in that current period, that looks like that. Like, is there a seasonal thing about dog attacks as well, or is that going to end up being a 700?
We do have the updated stats for January. We just did this report, was intended for committee last year, is where that information came from.
But I suppose what I'm getting at is that if that's a 6-week period, that's, 1/11 or 1/9. That looks like that's going to head in this 12 months to higher. And I'm trying to
Stacey has the figures up until a few days ago, I believe. So what are we up to now, Stacey?
Yeah, thank you. So as of the 13th of January, our registered dogs were 71,268 and the reported dog attacks was 237.
Okay, so we're back on track.
It's back on trend.
Oh, hang on. September to January?
Yes, 1st of September to the 13th of January. So that's in accordance with our registration.
So that means we're heading towards 1,000 dog attacks.
Like I said, we're back on trend. Trend to go up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit seasonal. Sorry, Anton.
Yeah, through the chair. Dog attacks definitely seasonal. So we find in holiday periods or school holidays, we generally get more reports.
Okay. Cool.
Back to you, Stacey.
Thank you. I mentioned earlier that achieving a high level of registration compliance remains a widespread challenge. While at the Gold Coast we perform better than many of our neighbouring councils, there's still room to improve and we are working on it. Currently, the City Administration utilises a multi-channel strategy designed to increase registrations and also support responsible pet ownership. Our digital efforts include website optimisation, targeted marketing and direct communications. We offer dog registration incentives and discounted rates that are actively promoted through various media channels and stakeholder engagements. These include our discounted rates for 3 years of registration for D-sex dogs, pension and concession card holders and current members of Dogs Queensland. Fee relief is also offered to seniors and veterans with the first 2 registered D-sex dogs. In 2025, we have explored new initiatives and improvements, including the recently introduced free puppy registration, Christmas in July. We've expanded our stakeholder engagement to include local vets, and we've started a trial of a targeted new registration program, which focuses on specific locations suspected of having low dog registration rates. This trial program has already shown a significant localised increase in new registrations, and we'll continue to expand this into this year. These are complemented by the existing activities, including early learning and school-aged education, and also the dog information cards, which are distributed by animal management officers, and also the recently revamped registration compliance program, which is specifically aimed at following up unrenewed dog registrations. Marketing and external communications and animal management teams continue to collaborate to enhance the customer experience and streamline the registration process. And this is guided by data, feedback, and our compliance programs. Annual campaigns like Update Your Dog's Details support the renewals and reunification efforts, while internal improvements focus on data accuracy and cost efficiency. We're aiming to boost dog registration compliance by continually working to make the process easier, more engaging, and more accessible. Through ongoing outreach, initiatives, and clear communication, we're reducing the barriers and encouraging responsible pet ownership. Our approach is evolving as we continue to strengthen education, expand our reach, and enhance our enforcement activities. The City of Gold Coast is committed to reducing dog attacks and improving public safety through a proactive education-focused approach, and this is balanced with strong investigation and enforcement activities. Animal management responds to over 15,000 complaints each year and conducts daily patrols in high-traffic dog areas to educate owners and ensure compliance with state and local laws. We deliver proactive programs like Let's Take the Lead and Walk With Me, which promote responsible behaviour, highlight containment and control, and clarify legal obligations and their penalties. Community education is further supported through partnerships with Neighbourhood Watch, local groups, school-based initiatives such as Be Pet Smart, and tailored presentation for high school and TAFE students. As part of the Stronger Dog Laws Safer Communities partnership, we've helped develop resources and training to support other Queensland councils in dog attack prevention. We continue to review our investigation processes and policies to ensure they remain robust, fair, and aligned with our current legislative expectations. In 2024, the We Care About Pets initiative educated over 500 dog owners on behaviour, body language, and legislative changes. Together, these efforts form a comprehensive strategy to promote responsible pet ownership and reduce the risk of dog attacks across the city. When a dog attack is reported to the City Administration, our animal management staff conduct a comprehensive investigation to take appropriate action. Councillors, as noted in Section 5.3 of the report, this can include obtaining a warrant to enter from a magistrate, seizing an offending dog, holding the dog at the city's pound facilities during the investigation, issuing infringements, declaring the dog as menacing or dangerous, placing a destruction order on an offending dog, carrying out the destruction order, prosecuting the owner or the keeper of the offending dog, and additional monitoring. Owners of regulated dogs must comply with strict state-imposed conditions, which can include containment, warning signage, muzzling, desexing, and specific identification requirements. There is also an increased fee for registering a regulated dog. Despite our ongoing efforts, we still face challenges in reaching greater registration compliance, and dog attacks do still occur in the community. Many owners are aware of the need to register their dogs, but choose not to due to cost, confusion about registration, or a belief that registration isn't necessary. This highlights the need for clearer communication and stronger engagement. Our officers have the legal authority to request details from non-compliant owners, but enforcement is difficult when individuals avoid officer interaction, and joint patrols with police help support these enforcement efforts. Challenges also include limited resources, low awareness of penalties, and a lack of consistent state-led education, especially around the recent legislative changes. And these gaps can contribute towards aggression towards our staff during their enforcement activities. Another common issue is owner complacency. Many owners believe that their dog poses no risk even after it's been involved in an incident. Misunderstandings about dog behaviour and control requirements continue to hinder compliance efforts and public safety. We're addressing these challenges through education, collaboration, and enforcement. While our current operations continue to meet service levels, recent initiatives have helped us deliver better outcomes for the community. Market research does show awareness remains a barrier, and many residents simply don't know that dog registration is mandatory. This highlights the need for more targeted education and clear communication. To address this, we've identified several future improvements aimed at increasing registration compliance and reducing dog attacks. These include expanding our education initiatives and improving our website with engaging video content, using high visibility and multi-channel marketing to boost awareness, trialling new approaches to reach underrepresented groups, streamlining the registration renewal process and refining our compliance programs for greater efficiency, and also strengthening our partnerships with the state government to deliver consistent messaging through the Stronger Dog Laws, Safer Communities campaign. We're also looking to scale up our existing education efforts, improve our school-based programs, and increase targeted patrols and blitzes in high-risk areas. Continued involvement in the state's technical working group and further stakeholder engagement will help us to align resources and amplify our impacts. These improvements reflect a more proactive and collaborative approach to education, enforcement, and engagement. But to realise their full potential, adequate resourcing is essential. But with the right support, we can drive long-term behaviour change and build a safer community. The City's administration remains committed to safety and responsible pet ownership, delivered through a balanced approach of education and enforcement. While the challenges we face around registration compliance and dog-related incidents are not unique to the Gold Coast, our city's animal management team continues to progress with targeted improvements and proactive strategies. Sustained improvement will require continued investment, innovative programs, and effective enforcement measures. By strengthening our collaboration and expanding our initiatives, the city's animal management team is well positioned to increase dog registration compliance, reduce dog attacks, and support a safer, more informed community. The recommendations as per the associated report are shown on the screen. Thank you, Chair.
Stacey, thank you. Councillor Young's hand was up first, and Councillor Tozer, and then I got Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Stacey. With regard to those who don't have dogs registered, have we got any kind of understanding of what the demographic is? Is it older people, younger? Is it all ages? Is it all incomes? I'm just wondering if there's a particular target audience.
Through the Chair, we've recently done some market research, and it did show it's a little bit across everyone, but it is generally the younger people a little bit more than the older demographic, and it's a real mix of reasons. Some people think it costs too much. There's a lot of confusion around the difference between microchipping and registration, as they're both mandatory, but they are separate. So a lot of people think they're doing the right thing and they've got their dog microchipped. They don't realise that they're missing a component of it.
Right. And what does happen with the money that's received by the city for dog registration?
So dog regos go towards a lot of things in addition to being a legal requirement. It also allows a lot easier reunification. So if a dog's lost or gets out accidentally, that sort of thing, we don't want to take them to the pound if we don't have to. It's a better outcome for everyone if we can reunite them with their owner and not have that extra impost on the city with the pound side of things. So it really helps with that. It also informs our decisions on where to place dog off leash areas and associated assets. It allows for our education and engagement programs. So things like Walk With Me and Let's Take the Lead are all benefits of having your dog registered, and it also assists with the animal management and pound facilities.
So just to be clear, the funds that the city receives for dog registration are spent on dog-related management matters?
Correct.
Not sending people overseas? Okay. So I think that's really important for people to comprehend that their money goes into effective management of the dog population in the city, which is really important. And that's perhaps a part of that education. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you, Councillor Young. I assure you, thank you.
I don't have any questions about overseas travel for dogs.
Excellent. Councillor Tozer, but you do have questions.
So I'm interested to know what proportion of the dog attacks actually occur in our off-leash areas, if we know. And I suppose an add-on question to that is, do we segment the location or circumstances of dog attacks to be able to understand where and why that's happening more?
Through the chair, that's something we're looking into. We'd need to capture more data in regards to the specifics. But generally speaking, our off-leash areas are reasonably good. The high volume ones, yes, we do get incidents, but probably on a percentage it would be very minimal.
Like minimal as in 10% or minimal as in 3%?
Less. Yeah, probably closer to 3, Councillor.
Okay.
Yep.
So most of the dog attacks that we're seeing reported are occurring on private property or public property? What do you think?
Yeah, look, majority are in the public, and
Okay.
it's around someone not complying. So generally a dog off leash or a dog's escaped. That would be the majority of dog attacks, but in private public property, yeah.
And in general, we aren't seeing a significant number of dog attacks reported inside our off-leash dog areas.
No.
Great, that's good to know. Part 2 is the presentation talks about some, aspirations that you have, which I think is great. And I'm interested to know whether the current resourcing of your unit enables you to achieve those aspirations, or are those aspirations dependent on increased resourcing? And that's probably a question for Rebecca to just get everyone else off the hook there.
Through the chair, in terms of the plans that we have for animal management, they are within current resources that we have. We are looking at using some technology to better enable our staff, and there is some work to do in that space. But all the issues that we have, or the plans that we have for the coming years in terms of education, come within the budget that we have at the present time.
Okay, so if the data you've provided today talks about, I think you mentioned 230 dog attacks in the last up to January 13, and I'm assuming that goes according to the other data, which was September to January 13. That does seem a trend that is heading in a larger, like it's increasing, a direction that is increasing. Are our current capabilities limited to? That's the stat I'm talking about. Is our current capability limited to those? To what extent do dog attacks take up time? And that sort of stuff.
Yeah, through the chair. So as far as the animal management team, we have close to 30 staff. We have 9 inspectors that manage the dog attack investigations, and then we have our animal management officers in the ground, so responding immediately if the threat's still out. The majority of time spent by those 9 inspectors would be probably 60 to 70% of their time allocated to dog attack investigations.
Okay, so just let me get clear. Are you saying that the 60% of the total units spent is paperwork and such related to that, or is it just those 9 officers' time?
Just those 9.
Okay. All right. That's better than I would have thought.
Just add a little bit in regards to the volume to date from the statistics there. What we take into place is it's the holiday period, the warmer weather, so there's more people out with dogs when we talk about dog attacks, so higher volumes in general, and then we have a lot of transient people or visitors to the city.
Yes.
So new environment for the dog, bigger crowds, hot weather can create a stressful environment for animals and owners equally. So.
What proportion of dog owners that are part of a dog attack or some sort of issue reside outside the city?
There would probably be 10% of our attacks are from someone transient.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, my last question is related to the resourcing as well. There's been talk in the organisation about some of our officers across various areas of local law and animal management and other areas, kind of, I don't know if the right word is, but cross-training or being able to do multiple things. Like, for instance, an animal management officer being able to issue a parking ticket. Using that might not be exactly what's happening, but the idea is that there's multiple functions of these local law officers. How is that going for the animal management team, and what is the timeline for that to kind of become a thing, if indeed it is going to be a thing?
So through the chair, we do have what is called a compliance ranger unit, and that stood up on the 1st of July. So those officers are cross-trained, so they can issue parking tickets. They also do some elements of animal management and local law. They are doing the higher out in the community patrols.
Yes.
When it comes to an actual attack, that would go to an animal management inspector, an officer that is specifically trained in that area and that has experience. So the rangers will do certain elements and the community, and where needed, it is then passed on to the animal management team.
So in Division 9, we have lots of off-leash dog areas, quite a few per capita, like compared to some of the other divisions. Am I right in saying an animal management ranger, I think is the word you use, as opposed to inspector, can turn up to an off-leash dog area and double-check that everyone's behaving well and the dogs are doing what they're meant to do, but also stop at the car park and issue a ticket as well? Am I right about that?
Correct.
Right, okay. And does that happen regularly? Like, to what extent are the animal management team enforcing parking?
So the animal management team themselves, the animal management officers and inspectors are not doing parking. The ranger unit is. The team started on the 1st of July, and you will see them increase in the city because they're just coming on board and getting the regulations, etc., etc.
All right, thank you. I think that's all my questions.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. I'm interested if you have any stats on dog attacks on beaches, because most of the complaints I get for off-leash dogs are on mainly on unpatrolled beaches in my area. So I'm not sure whether you've done any sort of stats on there. And I also want to bring up the challenge that you guys face having to patrol unpatrolled beaches, because we've got, kilometres and kilometres of that, and it is a real problem. And we hear, I think the coastal councils will tell you they hear about it every day.
Through the chair, in regards to specific statistics for beach attacks, I don't have that, but can take that on notice and advise at a later time. In regards to patrolling our beaches, you're right, the coastline is huge. So we do have a presence there majority of the time, but they're our most popular areas for dog owners. So yes, it's a challenge, but the team that Rebecca just mentioned, so the rangers, the animal management element of the ranger role is predominantly to patrol some of those areas. So we're asking them to be on our foreshores. We're in the throes of getting them some ATV training so they can utilise our buggies just as a presence. For animal management, a lot of it is having a presence in the area or just being seen. So there's some of the challenges, but that's what we're doing to increase being seen out there, I guess.
To just make a comment about that, I think there's probably some dog attacks that probably never get reported, and actually on the beach, because you're on the beach and then you go off the beach and you don't bother to report it. But they seem to be increasing in my area, especially around the Crumben area and Tugun area, between Tugun and Balinga, where it's unpatrolled and very, very early in the morning. So I guess you guys start early to counteract this as well.
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct. So we have officers on the beaches from 6 a.m. And we are conducting blitzes of the area, which you and Councillor Martin are probably aware of, where we'll establish or step up a team of 5, and they'll be accompanied by 5 QPS officers. They're done throughout the city at random times to try and catch people that may be aware of some of our routines. And yes, so another proactive thing the team's doing.
Councillor Doran was next, and Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Stacey, in the report it says that we have approximately 50% of the dogs currently registered. I guess that I'd love to understand how you know the dogs that are in the city that aren't registered.
Through the chair, there's a widely acceptable calculation that's used by animal management groups, other councils, that estimates based on the residential density, residential dwellings, times by, sorry, off the top of my head, I can't exactly remember it, but it's a percentage of households expected to have a dog, gives you what's assumed to be there. So that's widely accepted.
It's because, it could be where 20%, could be where 80%. But is there another way that we can get comfort on the data?
Apologies, Councillor Doran. I think we apart from the calculation, don't we do some ground truthing? But you might go visit a street of 10 houses and the assumption like you actually ground truth that. It's not just the calculation, there's a level of ground truthing to make sure we're kind of picking up the right accuracy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's also anecdotally from the officers that are out in the field doing the registration campaigns and that sort of thing from what they see out on the ground.
I'm curious as to the unit's ambition to grow that 50%. There's a lot of initiatives that have been pulled forward and are working on a lot that you put forward last year. Like, what is your department's goal and realistic and stretch target to get in terms of the registrations up? I'm presuming that's a goal. So what's the target and by when?
If I'm able to, through the chair, we are looking to increase by 5% in the financial year, which is a fairly big jump. And if you benchmark across at other councils, that's an ambitious goal. But we're putting a lot of initiatives and we're doing a lot of trials as well to see if something works in an area, then we'll look at expanding it. If it doesn't work, there's no point us rolling it out across the city. So we're trying different approaches to be more innovative and different things there to increase it by 5%.
Great. So 5%, this fits in ending June 30. Great. Will you present back in due course how you went on that target?
Through the chair, we're happy to do so. So we are looking at a 5% this year and a 5% next year. So we have a compounding goal that we have, and we are doing some of the trials to see what works, and also looking at having some initiatives where people feel like they're not sure what they get for their dog registration, which is the reason why we did some trials such as the Christmas in July and a few other things like that to give a whole rounded experience for the community.
You're certainly not sitting on your hands. Don't want you to take that from what I asked Rebecca. But I think what's interesting is that the council wants to see some growth, right? We want to get dog registered for the reasons that you outlined. But I think knowing that where we're trying to go means that when we have budget allocations and we have resourcing discussions, if you don't hit your target, is it because of funding? Like, those questions, I think, is relevant questions for the council. So I think, Chair, my questioning, just to explain that, is around where's the target so we know what to measure you against, and then we know whether or not resourcing is appropriate. This is my final question, Chair, is noting that I'm not a coastal councillor. They're much more cooler than we are out in the west, almost west.
I was going to say,
yeah. You're not coastal, you're not west. Where do you sit?
I said almost west.
Almost west, yeah.
Almost
southern, but not really southern.
I have recently, I'm pushing forward. I have recently noted, I get some decorum in the... I have recently noted over the break, and you mentioned the seasonal Anton, so thank you, but I have recently noticed that in sports fields and parks there has been an increase in my observation of dogs off leash. What should the community expect to see as a service standard for outside of business hours with regards to dog enforcement activity or patrols in our suburbs? Obviously, a lot of people walk their dogs morning and after work, and there's a common, hopefully, misconception that's presented to me that they don't get picked up because the officers work business hours. Can you talk to me a bit about what's in place for outside of business hours in the non-coastal suburbs?
So through the chair, our unit does operate on a 7-day a week. We do not operate just in business hours. And we do have officers that are on call at all times. So the community should expect us to see us out in the community at all times of day and night. While we do have some patrols, like Anton mentioned, starting at 6 a.m. in the morning, that does not take into account the ranger unit, which has different operating hours. So we do vary our times across the city. It is a very broad city, so we do need to pick and choose where we are, but we certainly try to patrol all areas and to target areas where we might see a spike.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Brooke.
Councillor Patterson, you're up next.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you. First, I'd just like to say I had a number of difficult dog matters over the last year, and I have to commend the team, animal management team and compliance for how those very sensitive matters were handled, with dogs having to be taken away from homes and things like that. I wanted to talk to you about the marketing, and two things came to mind. First was when I was dealing with microchip at the vet with my dog. I don't remember any mention of registration. So I was just wondering what work we could do with the vets, that it's just automatic. Oh, while you're sitting here waiting for your dog to be microchipped, complete this material. So those two things go hand in hand. And the other one I was thinking of is probably more of a marketing thing, is colour of the collar bands. So after I registered, I was like, oh, I've got this little yellow collar thing. Now, when I go to the spit, everybody's got their fancy little collars and different colours and the like. Just the same as number plates, you've got a choice now. Do you want a pink number plate or a green number plate? Is that an expensive thing? Is there a reason why it needs to be bright yellow so that animal management can see it? Is it something we could consider? And could that be a marketing drive? Choose your colour of your little animal manager tag. Yeah. It would be, I mean, I get that there would be a greater expense to it, but there would be people who would want the aqua or fluoro or whatever you can do and pay more for it.
Thank you. Through the chair, with the vet aspect of it, that's something that we started partway through last year as and our proactive programs officer is actually going out, making her way through every single vet on the Gold Coast to talk to them and explain the benefits of registration and provide them with information and puppy packs and have that sort of one-on-one engagement with the vets to get them to then promote it onto new dog owners, especially with our free puppy registration. We're finding that's got quite a good uptake from the recent engagements. Obviously, it'll take a little bit to get through every vet on the Gold Coast, but that is the plan, to then come back and repeat and do the reminder again to capture that aspect of it. As for the yellow tags, I don't know a lot of history on why the colour is yellow, but I believe we can look into it if that's something.
Through the chair, we do actually we do have an initiative that we are looking to do in the next financial year, where we are just exploring what a couple of other councils do in terms of tags that are available. Also looking at a metal tag which has a QR code on the back, which allows people to contact us and we can reunite. So a lot of the work that we do, especially when pets are found, is to reunite owners with their pets. And I think that that's a misconception. People think we take the pets straight to the pound. Our goal is to try and reunite as soon as possible. So we are definitely looking at something like that to see what we can increase in the city. Thank you.
Councillor Martin and Councillor Wilkinson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report, especially around dog attacks, but obviously also, having two off-lead dog beaches did a lot with the team, and patrols and blitzes, and obviously we get a lot of complaints around blitzes because the fine is high, set by the state, around $800. But it's really important if we want to try and mitigate dog attacks and the really bad outcomes. But one of the trends that I've seen lately, and we've talked about it, Anton, is commentary on social media around that public are not required to give details to council officers where they're not authorised. And I'm just seeking to dispel that around, is it a further offence not to give details, and do council officers have the authority to request details?
Through the chair, that's correct. It is an offence to not provide an authorised officer with your details when approached and advised why they're engaging with you. So there's definitely an offence there.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important if there's people in the community that are saying you don't need to give details, that could be a further offence, and ultimately the reason the fines are there, it's not revenue raising but to mitigate this dog attack. So thank you.
Yeah, please.
So does that offence relate to a person who's under 17, for example?
I don't know. I'd have to take that on notice. That's a bit of a grey area.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Martin, was that your questions? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I'll start by just echoing some of the sentiments of my colleagues through to the team, because I think you do a phenomenal job, and it's very challenging on a number of fronts. And I've had the luxury of going out with even some of my local management team like Chris to see it on the deck. So firstly, commend you for the work you've done. Thanks for the report. My question comes back to a bit of the statistics and whether or not you can provide anything, given that reported attacks can be from both registered dogs and unregistered dogs. Do we have a breakdown in that respect of, is there a trend that we see more dog attacks that are from unregistered dogs versus those that are registered?
Through the Chair, I don't have the statistics, but generally speaking, it would be 50-50.
Thanks for that, Anton. And further, I guess, to that, just in relation to, obviously, there's a number of mechanisms that we can take as actions when the dog report is, an attack is reported. And I know we rattled some of those off a little bit earlier. Stacey mentioned them. But as far as, is there something that precludes us as part of perhaps an act that would say that as part of an action that we could take, that a mandatory registration would occur for those, for instance, that were unregistered in a dog accident? Is that something that has been explored, or is it something that we're precluded from doing? I just note that it's not listed as an action as such. We can issue infringements, but to me it would make sense if we want to try and continue to increase our capacity of registered dogs, especially in the instance where one has attacked, that we could look to go perhaps down that path as well.
Yeah, look, through the Chair, once an officer receives any incident, or specifically a dog attack, one of the first things is identification and around that registration. So if an offending dog or a victim's dog is unregistered, then it's highly likely that we would take a regulatory approach from the get-go.
If you don't mind, I had a couple of quick questions. Stacey, I think you might have made a comment, or Rebecca might have made a comment about tech. I was just interested in this space of, is there something technology-wise that you're particularly keen to raise with us, or that another council is doing that you're looking into that might be coming up in the future to help in this space?
So through the Chair, currently the animal management officers, when issuing infringements, they are handwriting those infringements, so they do not have any devices. So yes, we are looking to, one of the first things we would like to do is to roll out devices to them to make that quicker and easier, so they can spend their time on higher value tasks. So that would be our first big item. Some of the things that we are looking at is, like we mentioned before, the use of QR codes and seeing if there is an appetite within the community to have a metal tag where people can then contact us. We do note that there are some tags already available where people can pay $30 to $40 to get a tag and scan a QR code to get their pet reunited. That is already part of your registration. So there's just people don't understand that, so some knowledge around those spaces. Our officers currently do have microchip scanners. We continually look to do some things in those spaces. And then we're looking at some areas where we can make it more comfortable for animals and cats and other animals that we have, not just dogs. Things like air conditioning our vehicles when we pick them up, and the city pound facilities.
I was interested possibly in, I don't know where I saw this or not, I don't know if it was a Queensland councillor or an interstate councillor, but I think they were using drones to be able to monitor larger areas, to be able to get the data to then work out where to send the human resources to. Has there been any think of those kind of thoughts yet, or is that maybe an aspirational future state of being able to use drones to help identify where to direct humans to?
So through the Chair, we have been looking at enforcement technology as a whole and the use of drones. I would say that is probably something that is aspirational. We have looked at what is available and what other councils are doing around Australia. Situational awareness drones, yes, but it's really the jury's still out on the effectiveness of it, but it's definitely something that we're looking towards.
Just for context, I was definitely thinking situational there, that just in the same way that we use the anti-hooning trailers to provide data to QPS of when they should do patrols. That not that you're using a drone to issue a ticket to someone, but you're using drones to capture where you've got a bigger problem and where the right time of the day to direct your human resources to. My final question was in regards to the market research you've done and how much feedback you had on the cost of registration being the reason why people don't do it. Is that the issue, or is it not as big an issue as possibly we think it is?
Through the chair, it is one of the bigger issues, but we're actually surprised at the variety in responses for people of why they didn't know about registration. So it's something that we've done the free registration for puppies in as part of the feedback from that. So yes, it's an issue, but it's not the only issue.
So you mentioned the free registration for puppies. Like, did we see an increase in registrations because of that program?
Through the chair, yes, we have. We've seen a significant uplift in the number of puppies being registered. And one of the things that we are targeting are things like the puppy training and going out to those. And as part of the graduation, allowing people to register at that point in time.
So the question was asked in the context of we charge a certain registration fee to cover the costs of programs and other things that we're doing. So it's a budgeted number. I don't think there's any research to dictate. So I think there is research to say that the number we're currently at is probably on the precipice of much more than that, and people might choose not to register their dog. I think that was part of the market research, was that we're probably about at the max kind of number people are willing to pay before we may see a drop-off. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, we are probably at the sweet spot at the moment.
So has there ever been a consideration or thought to that if we were to dramatically drop the cost of registration fees, why would be foregoing revenue if we saw a dramatic increase in registrations, the benefits that could come from that?
Through the chair, we haven't done specific research on that. We're happy to look into what that is. We have done scans in terms of what other councils do and the registration fees. The City of Gold Coast does sit sort of in the middle range of that. We're happy to look into that further.
So I think it's one of those ones that's very difficult to benchmark cities on these different things because our city is laid out differently and a lot of our people live in units versus other local governments. So I appreciate the benchmarking against other local governments, but I think this particular question is going to be a bit specific to us because our demographics, where our people live, how they live is different. It would be an interesting cost-benefit analysis that if we did reduce the registration fees and saw a significant increase in registrations, does that then provide other benefits, that the ability for officers to reunite dogs with animals, to be able to take compliance on dog attacks is therefore easier and you get a cost-benefit that way? I would be interested in that future report where it comes back for Councillor Doran. Maybe that could be part of that because it is a budget consideration. We would be foregoing revenue, but there may be extra costs that we can reduce by being able to speed other things up. Don't know if that just made any sense at all.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Do we need to add a 3 to the recommendation for that report back, or do we just take that as on notice? I think
Leash has already got a note there to bring one back.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've got a few notes, the colours of the tags, the registration. It might be we look at things like, do we do a blitz similar to the compliance blitz that we do a campaign for a month and we say, I'm making this up by the way, half price registrations, but we'll look at that as a team and look at some options and bring that report back.
I don't know if we need to add a 3 on to that way, but I would leave it to officers, like when you think you've had enough time to see if some of your new initiatives and programs have worked and some of your trials have worked, they might be in 12 months' time possibly to come back again with an update on how those things are going. Obviously, the registration stuff and whatnot, you're in budget build at the moment, so I don't know if getting that work done and cost-benefit analysis for this year's budget would be an option, but that might be for 27, 28 to consider.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've also got the report. Councillor Doran, you wanted, so our end of 30th of June this year, so we would come with a report straight after that as well. The budget in terms of budget asks and additional budget asks, I can certainly ask for that, but my understanding is that's pretty close for 26, 27.
Yep. Probably, so the report back on the 5% that Stacey guaranteed us would be great. And so, And then in that, Chair could possibly have a calculation that would say if you dropped, to pick up on your thinking, if you dropped the dog registration to this level but increased the registration by this level, it's a revenue neutral position as a base case.
Yeah. Officers happy with that? We'll work on that kind of time frame. Just councillors, so I don't think there's any other questions. Was there anyone that was dying in particular to be the mover of this item and speak to it at all? Councillor Patterson, Councillor Wilkinson already gave a little bit of stuff to it, so anyone in particular want to move and say anything particular? Councillor Gates is. That's right. Councillor Gates is happy to move it. Councillor O'Neill is happy to second. Councillor Gates, do you wish to add anything else?
And I think it was Councillor Vorster and I who pushed really hard for an increase in the penalty for dogs off leash, because we were aware of a number of attacks, and it's only through that that we can cause a bit of grief and try and encourage people to keep their dogs on a lead. So all in all, it's a good move to be increasing our efforts to get registration up, and happy to support the report as it is.
Anybody else wish to contribute at all? So agree with Councillor Gates, and just wanted to finish by saying that I think we need to sometimes remind our community that individual owner responsibility for dogs. It always amazes me, some of the comments I see in Facebook groups of expecting that there's just going to be council compliance officers right across the city and they're going to be there within an hour of making a complaint. Like, as you heard, while we have 9 people in this area, this is a huge city. We have a lot of areas you can take dogs to. Our resources must be directed to where the greatest chance of having effect goes to. So I think we as councillors need to continue to remind our communities of the individual responsibilities of dog owners and remind them of the penalties that rightly apply, because for any of you, and I know Councillor Gates has seen a few of them, like if you've seen a child especially that's been through a dog attack, it can be horrific. So I really don't think there's any excuse in this space. I don't care what you think your dog is or what it might not be capable of. Every dog is capable of it in the right situation or the wrong situation. And we should continue to encourage everybody to register their dog, always have their dog on a leash, and wherever possible to be part of the greater city approach in this space of looking out for each other in that area and doing the right thing, because it's only through that dog attacks will go down. We'll close debate on that. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried unanimous. Stacey, team, thank you very much as always. The councillors, that brings us to the end of the formal items. I'm not aware of any general business items. Councillor Doran, nothing for us today. Slow start of the year for Dan. I love the video of the beer goggles, but Councillor Doran, excellent.
I put that on for everyone, like I deliberately played up.
Do you want it up on the big screen? We'll chuck it up. Councillors, meeting shut at 10:50. Oh, sorry, Councillor Young, apologies.